in the Cincinnati, Ohio area. I've lived here my whole life. I've worked in the developmental disability field for over 20 years now, and I
Yeah.
certainly didn't have a child with a disability.
Yeah, what a
So
convenient thing to have been into now that you're a parent. Yeah.
I mean, yes, and it's also humbled me in a lot of ways, and it probably made me better at my job as
Yeah.
well. I used to work for the county. I used to be a service coordinator. Then we moved to Buffalo in 2022 for my husband's job, and his family lived there, and we lived there for 2 years. And then we just came back. We had gotten her diagnosis once we moved. We were so close to Cincinnati Children's before.
Yeah.
And Cincinnati Children's is like one of the top hospitals.
Everybody keeps
So
talking about Cincinnati Children's. There's some guy who said other Sanfilippo families stay at his house when they kind of come out there and stuff.
I mean, listen, her story has, like all these kids, she had issues at birth and they saved her life. So I can't say enough good things about them.
Yeah.
But then, so we came back. Now I work in a special needs school with kids with pretty severe behavioral issues. I've loved that. I love it. Ziggy works for the railroad. We have 6 kids in total, a
Oh,
lot of children. So he had 3 prior to me. He's got a set of twins that are 21, another daughter, they're 2 girls, another daughter who is 18. And then we had Scarlett, who is our daughter who has Sanfilippo. She's 11. And then we had another set of twins. We have 2 boys that
yeah.
are 8. We definitely didn't know about
Yeah.
Sanfilippo
Yeah. Of
when we
course.
were trying to conceive again. Otherwise, which I'm thankful for in hindsight, because I don't know that I
Yeah.
would have conceived again had I known.
About the journey to diagnosis for your daughter.
She's 11. It's been a crazy, I think, like a lot of families,
Yeah,
kind
it's
of a
probably all the
crazy
same.
journey to
Yeah.
get to there. So when I was pregnant with her, I think at 20 weeks, I had an ultrasound. They found something to do with her ureter, her kidneys and her ureter system. She had a dilated ureter. My first child, so freaking out. Somehow in the ultrasound at 20 weeks gestation, they saw that hers was like dilated. So that was kind of like the beginning of the chaos. In hindsight, I just like it's all Sanfilippo is now what I
Yeah.
have did,
Works everything out.
narrowed it down to that. Everything that's happened has been Sanfilippo. That's what I'm going to say. Very early on, we had to go in and do all these testing. I had to have an MRI when I was pregnant. They were telling us she was only going to have one kidney. The one was probably going to shrivel up and die. All these crazy things. Pretty traumatic birth, if you will. Just a lot of chaos that went on, but it was fine. And I tell you all this just because at home, nothing crazy happened. We were going to follow up with urology once she was a little bit older to see how the kidneys looked. 5 weeks, at 5 weeks old. She's been fine. She's been healthy and normal, nothing out of the norm. Breastfeeding, she had thrush at the time. They had just put her on nystatin to help with the thrush in her mouth. This was also because she was on antibiotics prophylactically because of the whole kidney thing. From birth, went right on antibiotics just to try to prevent any kind of urinary or kidney infections.
You guys were walking on eggshells from like
Yeah, for
early
sure.
on,
For
day
sure.
one.
So with the antibiotics, it gave her thrush. So then they gave her this nystatin for the thrush. We'd been on it for a day or so, and I was giving it to her like 3 times a day. Literally, it was December 16th, 2013, 5 weeks old to the day. She wakes up from a nap. It's like 2:30 in the afternoon. Change her. I give her a dose of nystatin, which is this neon green color. Set the syringe down, and I look down, and it's coming out her nose and her mouth like she's choking on it. So I pick her up and I'm like, oh my God. And she starts doing this like arching thing. And then I'm like, is she having a seizure? What's happening? Seems like she's choking, but it could be a seizure. I go over to my husband, Ziggy, and I'm like, I don't know, something's wrong. Something's wrong. It's like mom instincts kick in, like something is not right. He took her and he was like, oh, she's just got the hiccups or something. It wasn't 3 seconds that I had grabbed the phone and was calling 911. Like I knew something seriously was wrong. And I'm calling, frantically calling 911. I'm going back over, looking at her. He's holding her. Her lips are turning blue and then purple. I'm like, she's not breathing. I need you guys to get here. Something's wrong. I don't know what's happening. In the grand scheme of things, it was probably all of like 6 minutes, but it felt like an entire lifetime had
Oh
passed.
yeah.
Like hours you guys are taking to get here. And I remember going out, it snowed here. I'm opening the front doors, looking for them. I'm on the phone with 911. It's like, please get them here or something. And I remember Ziggy coming around the corner holding her, and he's crying now. He says, she's closing her eyes, Jackie. So I grab her. At the time, I was an instructor in CPR. She's completely gray at this point. She's not blue. She's not purple. She's gray. She's lifeless, and she is not breathing anymore. I mean, I remember thinking I thought I would never get this image out of my head. It fades with time. But I started CPR on her, 5 weeks old. I'm in the middle of giving her CPR, and a police officer comes into the house. He tried to take over, and then the ambulance had pulled up. He scooped her up and ran out of the house with her. I remember laying there in the fetal position for a few seconds thinking my entire life is over. Like, she's gone. She is gone. I know she's gone. It was the most horrific thing. I finally got up and ran out to the ambulance, and the police officer stopped me, and the EMTs opened the door because I'm frantic, and they're like, be quiet and listen. And I hear her screaming. And I about collapsed. So, oh my gosh, she's alive. And they're like, we have to go. Long story short, really no real answer to the story. She ends up at Cincinnati Children's. She was basically on life support for about 2 weeks. She was on an oscillating ventilator for 2 or 3 days. So they took her to Liberty, which is not the main location. When I got there, after they had taken her and they took us back into the big room where she was surrounded by doctors, there's blood coming out of these tubes. And I'm like, why is there blood? What is happening? It was awful, so traumatic. You know, the doctor's holding our hands. You need to prepare yourself. We don't know, but she's bleeding from her lungs. So she had a pulmonary hemorrhage. We spent over a month in the hospital. 2 weeks, she was basically on life support. She coded two times while we were there, spent her Christmas, spent New Year's. Never got an answer. They said, we have no idea what caused this. They couldn't find where the bleed came from, like where in her lungs. Her just being such a basket case at the time, being hormonal. I'm only 5 weeks out of giving birth to my first child and just sleep deprived. You know, I was basically starving myself too because they wouldn't let you eat in the room with her. But I was like, well, then I'll never eat again because I'm not leaving her side. I remember begging them to not send us home. I was terrified. But, you know, she got better. She did. I don't know how. I don't know why they pumped her full of steroids. And we saw every specialty under the sun. We saw genetics. They ran all these genetic tests on her. Yeah. Not Sanfilippo, but all these other ones. Cardiology, rheumatology. Nobody could figure it out. So they sent us home eventually and said, good luck. If it happens again, call us. I remember just thinking, like, what do you mean if it happens again? She barely lived. Luckily, it's never happened again. We got an answer. We're followed by a pulmonary doctor for a couple years. I remember him thinking it was these super rare lung issues, but it never was. As she grows and as she's developing, you know, the first thing I noticed was as a baby, like 9, 10 months old, and she was on steroids for so long after this, just to try and make sure this didn't happen again. So she got that moon phase. She was so chunky. Never got a baby laugh. Never got one of those like busty, like gut-filled giggles like babies typically do. The pediatrician was like, let's refer you to early intervention. Called them, talked to the lady, and I was like, you know, I don't really think that there's anything developmentally wrong. She smiles and she opens her mouth like she's happy and she's wanting to laugh. It just doesn't come out. So I put it off till she was about 2.5. And, you know, she wasn't talking a ton. She was talking, but not enough to where the pediatrician again was like, I still think you should go back to early intervention. Let's bring them on board once more. So we did.
Verbal now?
Yes, nowhere near what she used to be.
Right. What type does she have?
But it's attenuated. There's a boy here in our area that got diagnosed last summer that's 8, and apparently they have the exact same mutation because Children's connected me with his family. We've met. I keep up with him. He's completely nonverbal. They're so different, but yet they have the exact same mutation. So Sanfilippo, thanks for giving us no guidelines to follow. No timelines, no nothing. It's going to be however it's going to be.
It is walking on eggshells, ticking time bomb that you're carrying around. You don't know when it's going to blow up.
I mean, it really is. Every cold and flu season, it's like I live on the edge of terror. Please don't let her get it. Please don't let her get sick. Please don't, you know.
What age is she at now in the story?
She's at 2.5. We go to EI, IEP. You can skip all the way up to like first grade by this point. She's developed fine. I mean, she's definitely behind. I can remember them talking in kindergarten about, you know, she's gripping the pencil great and she was starting to write her name. But probably first grade was when, into kindergarten, first grade, a lot of talk about her hyperactivity. I can remember her kindergarten teacher saying, like, I've never seen anything like it. Her attention span is less than 3 seconds. And I was like, oh, I know. I don't know how you guys are teaching her at all. And then we had the pandemic in there while she's in kindergarten. So then when I had to try and do it at home over Zoom. And I remember thinking, like, she can't hold any of this.
It made me feel like such a failure. I'm like, what the hell am I doing wrong? So hard.
And especially with the COVID, I remember just thinking, like, I must have literally no patience. Maybe it's she's my first kid. So I'm just like, sure, she's a little hyper, but how do these teachers teach these kids? And we started seeing some more behavioral things starting to come up.
Did she have a one-on-one aide?
She just got a one-on-one aide last year. which
Wow.
is a whole other bag of
Crazy.
problems.
Connor has had an aide since kindergarten.
And she's
Yeah.
had an IEP with all the needs, but nobody had ever even suggested an aid. She was in kindergarten, first grade, second grade. School she was in here. They did it. So she would go into a typical classroom for part of the day. And the other part of the day, she would go into an intervention classroom. It's like a special ed teacher, but they're called intervention specialists. That seemed to work. She'd go into that other classroom with maybe 6 or 8 other kids that had some sort of developmental disability. And they had a sensory room. I can remember her having these big meltdowns. That's starting, around the end of first grade, second grade, where she would just have these huge emotional outbursts of screaming and crying. And they had a sensory room. And so she would go in there, don't give her five. She does it at home, go up to her room, she'll scream, she'll cry because we told her no or something, I said, and then she'll come out and she'll say, I okay, I sorry. That seemed to work. But again, as time progressed, that wasn't working. At home, as time progressed, I think it was about second grade. So it would have been like 2021. Yeah, 21, I think, is when TikTok became a thing because of the pandemic. I finally got on it. And Carrie Fowler and Hayden is who I saw first. Oh. Hayden's a year or so younger than Scarlett. When I first saw her, Hayden was still walking, but not, she was starting to lose her mobility. She reminded me of Scarlett. Like Scarlett reminded me of her. And Scarlett doesn't have the typical, she doesn't have the super like thick eyebrows or any of that, which Hayden does, but there was just something with Hayden. And I remember I would watch her videos and I would just have this horrible horrible feeling like, oh my God, what if she has this? I would obsessively watch them and I would tell my husband and he was like, no, it took me a good year because we didn't see a ton of regression. It wasn't really apparent. And by this time she's now in second grade, third grade. Behaviorally, things are getting worse. Now, looking back, I can see it now, but in the moment, I didn't see it as regression. I just thought these behaviors are getting in the way. These behaviors are getting in the way.
The behavioral bursts or whatever kind of mask the progression that you're not noticing.
Yeah. Because now we're just focusing on trying to get her to not have these and we went to developmental peds. We talked to them. They wanted to try all these meds. We tried Vyvanse. We tried Ritalin. We tried Strattera. They either made her more mad, more angry. One of them kept her up. She was up till 3 a.m. just yapping. I was like, oh, dear God, no. Yeah. Strattera was a non-stimulant. It didn't do anything. So I was like, well, I'm not going to keep giving her something that's doing nothing for her. None of it worked. School, they're trying weighted vests and weighted wrist things just to get her to sit still. I was doing private speech, private PT, private OT. Yeah. But in the back of my mind, I know about it. I know about Carrie. I've heard of it now. I did go back for genetic testing when she was younger. They had us tested for this P10. Oh, P10. Yeah. And she didn't have it. But that was it. That was it. Developmental pediatricians, they all were like, I guess she doesn't really fit autism. Like she holds eye contact. She's pretty social. I'm like, but she has to be. Like she has to be autistic. What else is this? What else is this? She's super hyperactive. She can't focus. And she was lining up all of her Barbie dolls. It had to be in this certain line. So I was like, this is autism. It's a spectrum. She's just somewhere on the spectrum where she's still social. Because what else would it be? And so, like I said, I started seeing Carrie stuff. And it took me probably a good year to finally say, I can't shut up about this anymore and hold it in. I need to say something. And because my anxiety was so high, thinking she had this. And so it was in 22, beginning of 22, that I took it to our regular pediatrician and I said, listen, I'm crazy. I saw TikToks and I'm terrified that Scarlett has this. And I tell her, Sanfilippo, I said, they're called childhood Alzheimer's. She's never heard of it. Never. She said, literally never heard it ever in her life, in her career. She sits there right in the office and Googles it, goes down all the symptomatic stuff. And she was like, yeah, let's Let's go back to genetics. I'm going to refer you back to Cincinnati Children's Genetics. Talk
Yeah.
to them, see what they think. Go to that appointment. They all walk in, they look at her. She doesn't have this. I can see why you think so. I can see why you would think that. And I remember them like just fullness of her lips, but them just continually saying, but they were like,
The expression of certainty about something that they ended up being wrong about. Don't say you know if you didn't end up knowing.
I'm sitting there thinking, like, oh, thank God. Oh, thank God. She doesn't have it. She doesn't have it. They know. They know.
I've had that too in doctor world. See, there's no connecting dots. Sometimes there's no thought to be like, you know what? I don't know what the hell's going on here. Send you there. If that doesn't work, we're going to go there. But instead, it's like, no, no, no. You're good.
It's, yeah, you're not, it's not that.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
So you got to, let's wait a few more years before you figure this out. We'll just make your life a little more miserable.
and at this point, she was 8. So I'm like, what is it? Because she is getting worse.
Yeah.
She's not getting better. So they tell me this, but I said, I still want to test. I still want you to test her for it. I need to know 100% she doesn't have this. And they were like, we'll still test her for it. We're going to do a huge panel of testing. Okay, great. Let's do that. So of course they're like, I'm sure we're going to have to fight with your insurance, da 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 da. Well, it ends up taking like 6 months. They screwed up the insurance. They kind of dropped the ball. By this point, we moved to Buffalo.
No way.
Now we're in Buffalo.
Jeez, this is a
And
disaster.
it's been like another 3 or 4 months that we should have already had these results. And I remember calling and they're like, anywho, so I'm always like waiting to get these results. And it was a Friday. I don't know why, maybe because I don't want to remember. It was in March. It was like mid-March of 23. It was a Friday. And I get a notification in my email that my chart at Children's has a test result. And I get in there and it's the results. Trying to navigate through these. I knew it's very hard to read and understand and know for 100%, but I knew. And it's Friday. Nobody called. Nobody can call. Nobody's going to call all weekend. I'm going to sit on this all weekend and have no answer.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. And then on Monday, the genetic counselor called me, and she was she works with a lot of our families that go to Cincinnati Children's with Sanfilippo. She's wonderful. And she was so appalled. She was like, I was off. It wasn't supposed to post to my chart until we called you, but it did. And I was like, listen, it is what it is. It doesn't change the results. Tell me what the results are, because I think I know, but I really need you to tell me, and I'm hoping I'm wrong. And she said, I am shocked. She said, I would have bet money that she did not have it, but she does. And she said, a mother's instinct, man. Talk about, you brought this to us, and I would have sworn she didn't have it. It was just the whole range of emotions of like, son of a bitch, she really has this. She's gonna die. That's the first thing. I mean, she's had so many surgeries. Her list of things is just, she's had dental work, she's had tonsils, adenoids, tubes, all, I think most of our kids have had those. So yeah, it has built me to be a little bit tougher about it. But again, it's like, just when I think I'm in the clear, then you're telling me again, I'm going to have to fight and figure out a way to save her life. Like, I don't know if I can this time. The good news was she had attenuated. The one gene was the really, really bad one, but the other gene made it a little less bad, which is wonderful. But again, the way I've looked at it now is she has this really rare disease and she has a rare form of it. So I really have no one to call to say what happens after this. And then I found out now after a couple of years that it doesn't matter if we all have the exact same.
It could happen any day, any night, in their sleep, seizure, all that crap.
Yeah. And she could be walking till she's 30. Or she could stop walking in 2 weeks. I don't know. We told our immediate family. I didn't make any kind of public announcement yet. I don't think I was ready for it. I don't love a lot of attention in that regard, especially pity attention.
Same token, though, once you get it out there, it's like such a devastating piece of news that you almost have to just throw it out there at once. You know what I mean?
Announcing it to the world socially was making it that much more real, and I just wasn't. much longer after we got it that I did. At the time, we're in Buffalo. She's in 3rd grade, and she's starting to have a lot of behavior issues. A lot. About 4 to 5 months before I put it on Facebook. I did go and tell her school. I told her teacher,
Right.
and I debated it because I was like, I don't want them to then be like, oh, well, she's got this thing where she's going to regress. So there's no sense in helping her now. Just like the worst fear. You're going to be like, oh, so she's not going to really be able to learn anymore. We can just move her somewhere else. So I let them know first off. We did go to Sanfilippo Fest that October in 2023.
Okay.
Sanfilippo throws, it was at Hershey Park. It's funny because we went to the one this year too. And it's funny because all the families that we had met the first go round, and Danielle and her husband, Kevin, they've helped so much, especially with when I had a lot of problems with the school. The second time around at Sanfilippo Fest, both coming separately to me and Ziggy and saying, you guys look a lot different this year than you did last year. You seem lighter this year. That first year was so hard going to Sanfilippo Fest. It was so wonderful to meet other families, but we also, I think I try so hard not to cry sometimes. You just can't help it.
It's hard.
I remember going to that first one, and so many of the kids are in wheelchairs or have G tubes, nonverbal, have their nursing there with them. I almost felt like a fraud, because then we're walking in, and I remember Kevin just finding his way to Scarlett, and she's so behavioral right now, and she was then just slapping the shit out of people, and we've kind of lost it, and I've just realized it in the last few months. But her big thing, especially back then, was saying, "Shut up, butthole! Shut up, butthole!"
Good.
And slapping people. Kevin would come over and he just wanted to be around her, and he just loved her, and she's just slapping the shit out of him. Shut up, butthole. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And he was like, no, just let her. And everybody telling you, I know it's hard right now, but we'll lose this. So just, don't be wishing it away too quickly. And then we went back again this year, and it was the same thing. I felt more a part of it. Better time the second go around, and I hate that they're not having it anymore. This was the last year for it, but really helpful. Connect with other parents and know that there are other people out there that I can talk to well with Kevin, because I think it is very true that dads kind of get a shaft in the deal.
Manly thing to do to look about furry things like kid dying and all that shit. What if your kid starts having a seizure? Like, I want to talk to a dad who could tell me, like, yeah, here's what had happened here, and I did this, and it was wrong, and it was like I should have done this. It's like, all right, you know what I mean?
I've had a good amount of help from this community. Connected us with the other whose little boy here in our area got diagnosed last year. He has a mom, and grandma also takes care of him. And grandma and I are actually more the same age that me and mom are. So connected, we've met up. He reaches out to me every few weeks, and we touch base. What drugs are he on? Here's what Scarlett's doing.
Yeah.
Even though we have a very different journey that we're on, to know gets it. Misery does love company, and I'd rather it be company that has no choice to be miserable too. I don't want to make someone miserable.
Yeah, it's
together.
like we're all in the same shitty boat.
Exactly.
If you're out with your kids and you're with your daughter, she's at a playground, or you're at a store or something like that, how should people interact with them? What makes your heart warm seeing whether on the playground or somewhere where the community can pitch in or just help make your life a little easier and her life a little better and easier too?
Well, I will say, honestly, right now, unfortunately, I don't know, we're in this phase where we don't go anywhere with her anymore. For whatever reason, she doesn't want to be out. I don't know. She's become very recluse. She's just aggressively verbal, and inappropriately verbal.
Trust me, I get it.
It is. It's a hard thing to explain. It used to be shut up butthole. There's been a couple times where I've tried to explain it, like at a gas station last year, because I was like, screw the world and working. Let's just buy a camper, and if we maybe we'll travel and we just live as much as we can. So we're trying to do more of that. But going into a gas station, she wanted, I took her into pee, and she wanted, all the candy. Let her have one, but one wasn't enough, and full on meltdown, just slapping the crap out of me. Shut up, butthole. Shut up, China. As I'm trying to cash out I remember the woman just looking at me, and I always think the worst. I always think you're thinking I don't know how to discipline my kid and blah, blah, blah. And I just looked at her. I was just like, I'm so sorry. I said, listen, she has a disability, and it's called Sanfilippo. Nobody knows about it, but it's like childhood assault. I'm trying to give her the shortest version.
While you're
just like
checking out your bologna and eggs.
yeah, I'm like, I want to put a vest on her that just has it. The fight I've been having for her right now in the last year, 2 years, has been behavioral. Buffalo, they kicked her out of school. I mean, she was going to school 1 hour a day, 3 days a week. So 3 hours of school a week. That's it. They couldn't ensure her
Brutal.
safety. Like, just don't.
That's a whole other conversation.
It's starting here now, where they've called us once now to come and get her and bring her and take her home because she was too much. We've had a meeting. Well, one thing I learned from Danielle is when I just had this most recent meeting, I said, I think the hardest thing for people in this field, in the developmental field, to understand about Sanfilippo is that her behaviors are not the same type of behaviors as as all the other kids that you're dealing with autism or with Down syndrome or with any of these multiple disabilities. Hers are medical. They're 100% medical. Her brain is deteriorating as we speak, shrinking, misfiring. It doesn't know what way's up and what way's down. She's trying to say, "Kick me outside," and she's saying, "Come in the cheeseburger." And it
Is that
doesn't.
right?
Her teacher made us key rings that say "kick them in the cheeseburger." It's another new saying. Scarlettisms are wonderful, but this is a whole different way of looking at behavior, and it's so much harder. I can't help you help her. I don't know how to help her.
Yeah.
I don't know. Bring in the ABA and the BCBAs, and I'm like, that's not gonna work. That's not gonna work. She stopped playing with toys, and it wasn't until it was gone that I really was like, oh my God, it's gone.